Your home is supposed to be the one place in the world where you're safe. The door is locked. The lights are on. You know every sound this house makes, which floorboard creaks, which window rattles in the wind, which pipes knocks in the walls at night. You know this place. You feel safe here. And then, something sounds different. A sound you don't recognize. A shadow that moves when nothing should be moving. The slow creeping realization that you might not be as alone as you thought. Tonight, I have 5 real cases, 5 people who were home, some alone, some with family, when someone decided to come inside. Check your doors before we begin. Let's start. He had been living in her house for weeks before she knew. The Intruder in the Attic, Japan. This first story comes from Japan. It is one of the most quietly disturbing home invasion cases I have ever researched because the horror here isn't a sudden break-in. It isn't a confrontation at the front door. It's the slow realization that someone has been living inside your home, eating your food, using your bathroom, sleeping under your roof, without you knowing, for weeks. A 57-year-old woman in Fukuoka, Japan, began noticing things around her house that she couldn't explain. Food missing from the kitchen, small amounts, the kind you might initially chalk up to forgetting you'd eaten it, objects slightly out of place. The subtle feeling that something in her home wasn't quite right, without being able to identify exactly what. She then installed security cameras. The footage showed a man walking through her home while she slept, moving through the kitchen, using the bathroom, and then re-entering to a storage space above her bedroom. A crawl space, a space she had no reason to ever open. He had been living there, in a space barely large enough for a person to lie flat. He had a mat, some food, some water. He had arranged a small, terrible living space directly above the room where she slept every night. Police were called immediately. A 58-year-old homeless man named Tatsuo Tanaka was arrested inside the crawl space. He told investigators he had been living there for about a week, but investigators examining the evidence believed it had been significantly longer. He had found an unlocked door. He had found a space no one checked, and he had quietly, carefully made himself at home, directly above the woman whose house he had invaded. She had slept beneath him every night, not knowing. She called 911. The operator told her to calm down. She was already dead. The Janett Christman case, Missouri. Some home invasion cases never get solved. Some of them are so old that the chances of ever finding the truth have faded almost completely. But they stay with us because the details are so specific, so vivid, and so disturbing that they refuse to be forgotten. It was March 18, 1950. Janett Christman was 13 years old and babysitting a 3-year-old boy at a home in Columbia, Missouri. The parents had gone out for the evening. Janett was responsible, trustworthy, experienced at babysitting, the kind of kid parents felt completely comfortable leaving their child with. Sometime that night, Janett called the emergency operator. She was screaming. She said a man was trying to break in. The operator told her to calm down. The call ended. When the parents returned home, they found Janett Christman dead. She had been attacked and strangled with an electric cord. The 3-year-old boy she was babysitting was unharmed, found safe in his crib. Police investigated immediately. A suspect, a local man who had been seen in the area, was identified. Evidence pointed toward him, but the case was never successfully prosecuted. The suspect maintained his innocence. Without sufficient evidence for a conviction, the case went cold. Janett Christman's killer was never officially identified. She was 13 years old. She was doing the responsible thing, babysitting a neighbor's child on a Saturday night. She called for help the moment she realized something was wrong, and the help never came. Her case was never solved. It remains open to this day. The family that was watched before they were attacked. The Hinterkaifeck farm murders, Germany. This next case is over 100 years old, and it is still one of the most disturbing home invasion cases in recorded history. In late March of 1922, in a remote farmhouse called Hinterkaifeck in rural Bavaria, Germany, 6 people were murdered. The farmer Andreas Gruber, his wife Casilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, Victoria's 2 young children, 7-year-old Casilia and 2-year-old Joseph, and the family's new maid, who had only recently started working there and had been warned by the previous maid that the farm felt deeply wrong. The previous maid had quit because of that feeling. But what makes Hinterkaifeck different from every other home invasion case, what makes it uniquely terrifying over 100 years later, is what happened in the weeks before the murders. Andreas Gruber had told neighbors she was disturbed. Someone had been leaving footprints in the snow leading from the forest to the farm, but no footprints leading away. He had found a newspaper on the property from a town he had no connection to. He had heard footsteps in the attic. He had found evidence that someone had been inside the farm, living there. He didn't call the police. He investigated himself. Then, on the night of the murders, each member of the family was lured into the barn one by one and killed with a mattock, a farming tool. The 2 youngest children were killed in the house. After the murders, investigators found something that still unsettles people today. Someone had stayed on the farm after the murders. For several days, the livestock had been fed. The neighbors who visited said smoke had been rising from the chimney. Food had been eaten from the kitchen. Whoever killed the Gruber family had stayed in the farmhouse with the bodies for days before leaving. Over 100 suspects were investigated. None was ever charged. The case was never solved. A killer who lived on the farm before the murders, who killed the entire family, and then stayed with the bodies before walking away, and was never identified. He watched the house for months before going inside. The Golden State Killer's home invasions. You may recognize this name from one of our videos. But what I didn't fully cover there, what deserves its own focus tonight, is the home invasion element of the Golden State Killer's crimes. Because before he became known as a murderer, he spent years perfecting the most terrifying kind of home invasion imaginable. He didn't just break in, he studied first. For weeks, sometimes months, before entering a home, the Golden State Killer would survey his target. He walked the neighborhood. He noted which lights turned off at what time. He learned when people left, when they returned, whether they had dogs, whether their neighbors were close. He sometimes called his victims on the phone beforehand just to hear the household's routine in their own voices. He cut phone lines before entering. He disabled exterior lights. He studied the inside of homes by breaking in during the day while residents were away, memorizing the layout so that when he returned at night, he could move in complete darkness without making a sound. He brought supplies, rope, a flashlight he kept pointed at the door, food, because he sometimes stayed for hours. Victims described the particular horror of waking up to find someone already standing over their bed, not someone who had just entered, someone who had been there long enough to be completely calm, completely in control, like he belonged there more than they did. This was a former law enforcement officer, a man who knew exactly how investigators thought, who used that knowledge to stay invisible for years. By the time investigators connected his crimes, he had committed over 50 home invasions and assaults across multiple California counties. He had refined what he did until it was close to invisible as a human being can be. Joseph James DeAngelo was eventually arrested in 2018. He was 72 years old. He had been living in a house in suburban Sacramento the entire time. A house with a yard, a house with neighbors. A man who spent years perfecting the art of entering homes that weren't his and making the people inside feel like they would never be safe again. She was home. She heard the door. She hid. The Keddie Resort Murders, California. Our final case tonight takes place in a small mountain resort community in Northern California, a collection of cabins nestled in the woods, the kind of place families went to get away from the city and breathe fresh air and feel safe. On the night of April 11th, 1981, the Sharp family was staying in cabin 28 at the Keddie Resort. Sue Sharp, a single mother, was there with several of her children and a friend of one of her teenage daughters. At some point that night, someone entered cabin 28. By the next morning, Sue Sharp, her son John, and her daughter's friend Dana Wingate had been brutally murdered. The weapons used included knives and a hammer. The crime scene indicated a prolonged, violent attack. Two of the children, Tina, 12 years old, and two younger siblings were in a back bedroom during the attack. The two younger children survived, hidden in the bedroom while the violence occurred in the next room. Tina was taken from the cabin and was never seen alive again. Her remains were found 3 years later, miles away. What makes this case uniquely terrifying is the small community context. Keddie Resort was not a city. It was a small, close-knit mountain community where people knew their neighbors. Whoever came into cabin 28 that night was either a stranger who had found this remote location or someone from the community itself. 3 suspects were identified over the years. One confessed on his deathbed in 2004, naming 2 accomplices. But the confession was never corroborated. No one was ever charged or convicted. The 2 youngest children who survived that night by hiding in the back bedroom are now adults. They spent that entire night as small children in a back room, hearing things they should never have heard, waiting for a morning that took far too long to come. The Keddie murders remain officially unsolved. Cabin 28 was eventually demolished. The resort is abandoned now. 5 homes, 5 intrusions, 5 cases where the place that was supposed to be the safest became the most dangerous. Here's what I think about after researching cases like this. The doors were locked in most of these stories. The people inside did what we all do. They went about their lives, felt safe in their own space, trusted that their home was their home, and someone on the outside decided otherwise. I'm not telling you these stories to keep you afraid of your own house. I'm telling them because these people deserve to be remembered. because some of their killers were never caught, because somewhere those cases are still open, still waiting for someone to come forward with something they know. Check your locks tonight. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.